Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the Daily Express columnist and broadcaster Carole Malone and the Belfast Telegraph columnist Allison Morris. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this story on the front of the Mail, with Israel's defence minister telling troops on the Gaza border that Hamas must be totally annihilated. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Express columnist and broadcaster Carole Malone. And joining us for the first time on this side of the Irish Sea, the Belfast Telegraph columnist Allison Morris. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. Welcome to both of you. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The address from Israel's defence minister to the troops massing at the Gaza border, urging the total annihilation of Hamas, leads the Mail. The Telegraph quotes him as saying, "Get ready to see Gaza from the inside." According to the Financial Times, allies of Israel, including the US, Britain and Germany, have encouraged their citizens to get out of Lebanon as the threat of further violence in the Middle East grows. The Times has Rishi Sunak meeting the Saudi Crown Prince and urging the country to do as much as it can to ease the crisis. The Eye also leads with the message to UK and US citizens to evacuate Lebanon as the potential for a war to escalate across the region increases. The Guardian carries warnings from aid agencies that delays in getting relief supplies into Gaza will mean that too little aid will arrive too late. As the Express puts it, in the name of God, save the children. Meanwhile, the Metro carries allegations that armed police in East London rammed a 13-year-old boy off his bike because they mistook a toy water pistol he was carrying for a real gun. A Metropolitan Police investigation has cleared the officers of misconduct, but his mother is taking legal action. The Mirror leads with comments made at the COVID-19 inquiry about Rishi Sunak, where he was labelled by one witness as Dr. Death. The Star has the story of a shop robber who was arrested after fooling staff by standing in the window for hours pretending to be a mannequin. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Carole Malone and Allison Morris. Good to see both of you. Welcome. Let's start with the Mail and the line that many of the papers are following, that the invasion, the land invasion of Gaza does look increasingly imminent. Carole.
Yeah, all day we've heard, we heard Rishi Sunak today, we've heard various other heads of state, we've heard the King yesterday, all calling for calm and saying, we have to be very careful how we handle this, and urging, calm on both sides. And here we have the Israeli army ready to go in there, and they're not calm. They're talking about digging in for a long war. They're saying we're only the total of annihilation of Hamas is going to do. They're not going to listen to anybody around the world, to any head of state saying that they must show restraint, because they don't want to. And Alison and I were just talking before, and I was saying, I'm not Jewish and I'm not from Israel. But if I was either of those things, maybe this is what I want my government to do. I know it doesn't help, and I know it's not going to solve the problem. But I just think these people at the minute, they want to, I think avenge is the wrong word, but they want justice, I think, for the people who were massacred 14 days ago. They've seen the pictures, they've seen the bodies of the babies, they've seen the bodies of the elderly, they've seen, there was one guy tonight saying that, to pretend, to listen to Hamas when they say no children were killed in the way they said. This guy today said, I've seen them. I saw what happened to them. I saw they were disemboweled. I saw they had their heads cut off. So I'm not going to listen to the fact that this didn't happen. So I think from where Israel is sitting, and although Netanyahu today, when he stood alongside Sunak, But he also said we have to win this war. And they're talking about this like it's a war that is just starting and is going to continue.
But Alison, it's still very frightening, this dramatic address by the Defence Minister, and very worrying about what potentially is to come, isn't it?
Well, it's a war against the Palestinian people of Gaza. It's not a war exclusively against Hamas. If it was, well, then people could say, well, it's justified. It's one country trying to defend its borders against an invading force, against an aggressive force, but it's not. We know what Gaza is. You have,
but it is a war against Hamas.
It's a war, but Hamas are so heavily embedded in such a heavily dense and built-up area that annihilation means annihilation of hundreds, if not thousands, of members of the Palestinian community, and that includes women and children. And there has been no efforts to try and evacuate those women and children maybe to a friendly neighbouring country. There has been no effort in order to try and distance the people who are there.
Sorry, just to stop you there. There have been efforts to move people to other areas of the country.
They have told people to move, and then there was bombs as people were trying to flee from that area.
Do we know that there were Israeli bombs?
We know that there are women and children who have been murdered, Israeli women and children, but we also know that Palestinian women and children have also been murdered. The word annihilation terrifies me because it sounds like a genocide. It doesn't sound like a war. And what we do know, I mean, the UN did a study last year that said 100 years ago, 90% of the people killed during wars were combatants. They were, armies fighting with each other. Now 90% of the people killed during war are women and children and civilians.
But just to be clear, the word annihilation is being used in reference to Hamas. Let's move on to The Guardian, though, because I just want to talk about the relief convoy and what we're hearing from aid agencies, that it's going to be too little, too late, should aid be allowed to go in tomorrow, Carole?
Yeah, of course it should. I mean, this is the point. I mean, I disagree with a lot of what Alison's just said about the fact that no efforts have been made to get people out. There have been. But when I was reading this stuff, I was thinking that they were letting 20 trucks in today. Well, that seems like a very small amount of aid for 2.3 million people. And I know a lot of them have left now, but even so, it doesn't matter. 20 trucks is nothing. And the way Joe Biden was talking yesterday, I thought there was going to be an awful lot more than that. But, that deal was just brokered yesterday between Biden and Netanyahu, and it's happening as we speak. Yes, This is a war from where Israel is sitting. It's a war, and actually from where Palestine is sitting, it's a war. And there are casualties in war, and I don't say that glibly. But I think, Israel is damned here if it doesn't, damned if it doesn't. It's told it's got to allow people to get out, so it's done that. And then when it gets them out, it's accused of forced transfer, which is in effect genocide. So, it is done, maybe too little, but it has tried something. But I think, as I say, if I was Jewish or if I was living in Israel, you can't expect the Israeli people to sit back and do nothing. And that's I don't know what... Hamas knew that too. Hamas knew that what the response of Israel would be. And they didn't give a stuff about the Palestinians.
Just to bring it back to the relief, the emergencies director of the World Health Organization also saying that aid needed to get into every day, basically, and call the initial convoy of 20 trucks a drop in the ocean of need right now. We're going to take a break. It's been brief, but we will have much more time after that. Still to come, migrants are back on board the controversial Bibi Stockholm barge tonight, prompting further protests. We'll discuss that and more next. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Carole Malone and Allison Morris. Let's have a look at the Metro and the Bibi Stockholm. This is part two, having another go of having migrants back on board, but there have been protests. Alison.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, and we know what happened the last time. There was a breakout, and they had to take of Legionella disease, and they had to take people off. They've said they've now cleaned it up. They've checked the safety standards, but I mean, even just reading this very short story, it seems that the problem is that the asylum system is just too slow. Of the 39 people that were taken off the barge in August, 29 are returning. And I know that this is such a sensitive debate, and I propose very strong emotions. But clearly one of the quickest ways to resolve it is to ensure that that asylum system is speeded up and is fair, so that people who are entitled to asylum are granted and are able to go and work and contribute to society, and people who aren't then are sent back to where they came from. And that's the quickest way to resolve it, because the fact that since August 29 of those people are still in exactly the same situation seems to be a failure of the system.
Of the 10, though, some with relatives and some exempted due to their mental health, and one returned to their home country.
Only one, you know, from the 39.
But what I find astonishing is that a lot of them, I mean, they're obviously being advised by these asylum lawyers, and they're saying things like they're terrified, they're traumatised at the thought of drinking the water on the barge, which is nonsense. I mean, and it wasn't even Legionnaire's disease. It was a bacteria that is found in many water supplies. If you went into any big hospital, there'd be a trace of it in there. But anyway, that's by the by.
But you can understand if they are concerned, can't you?
Well, the thing is, we see what I think, and having seen this barge and having talked to homeless people about this barge, homeless people from this country, they say they'd give their right arms to have been given that kind of accommodation when they were homeless. So if these people are fleeing persecution, war and persecution, from where I'm sitting, that shouldn't matter very much. They've got a safe haven. They're in a lovely place in Dorset. It's divine. The people are very welcoming. And why wouldn't you want to do this?
Well, there have been some protests, but
they've been more welcoming, with all the welcoming bags and the shower gels that are all there.
Leave it there, sadly, just because of time, and you'll have a whole hour at 11, so we'll discuss further then. Thank you both for the moment.